So if you leave the St. Croix rams with the St. Croix ewes year-round, the question is, when do they lamb? St. Croix sheep will naturally lamb starting around December 15th and finishing around January 15th. This is the natural lambing season for any ewe that is 2 years old or older. For the yearling ewes that have never lambed before, since they'll come into estrus a little bit later because they were just born last year, they will start lambing anywhere from January 30th through the end of February. Winter is the best time to lamb because there's no parasites, there's no bacteria, there's no insects, there's just not a lot of problems if you lamb in winter. And the St. Croix sheep are easily able to lamb in winter with no problems here in Tennessee. Now up north it might be a lot different, but here in Tennessee we don't have problems with the cold or losing lambs in the winter. So to help me understand the breeding cycle for St. Croix sheep, I created this chart that breaks up the yearly cycle into 4 seasons, and with the equinoxes at March 21st and September 21st, and the winter solstice at December 21st and June 21st for the summer solstice. As the length of day begins to shorten in the late summer and fall, this affects the St. Croix ewes where they come into estrus and they get ready to breed. And this is what makes them breed from December 15th to January 15th. So when you know that the gestation period for St. Croix sheep is 5 months, it tells you that they came into estrus or started to breed from July 15th to August 15th. This is due to the shortening of the amount of daylight they receive, or the photoperiod, and when the days become just 15 minutes shorter, this starts the estrus cycle. What I've also noticed from experience is that the St. Croix sheep will start to wean their lambs anywhere from like the middle of May to the middle of June, so they can be ready to start the estrus cycle all over again. Knowing this cycle is very helpful because it tells me that I need to remove all the ewes and rams that are not fit for breeding at the end of June before the next cycle begins. And since the ewes have already weaned their lambs, this means that any ewe that is not fattening up at the end of June, there's something wrong with her and she needs to be culled. The other thing I've seen from experience is that the yearling ewes, they're only a year old, they don't come into estrus until they're at least 7 months old. So they may come in to heat in September or October, which is why they lamb so much later. They will start lambing mostly from the end of January to the end of February, but you might see some as early as January 15th and as late as March 15th. So to make sure these yearling ewes get impregnated, you really don't need to be removing your rams or any rams you no longer need until after October 15th, because these rams need to be present to make sure these yearling ewes can have offspring. Some sheep breeders will try and control when the lambs are born and make them breed in the off-season by separating out the ewes from the rams and keeping 2 separate flocks. The problem with this is that you need, for 2 flocks like that, for the males and the females, you're going to need 2 sets of fencing, 2 sets of water supplies and stock tanks, 2 sets of guard dogs, and you're going to have to two different places to feed them, maybe 2 barns. You have to keep them fairly far apart for them not to notice each other. And so you have to make and keep it all secure, and that's a lot of work. It's just so much easier to keep the ewes with the rams year-round and let nature do it. You know, nature wouldn't be telling us that they want to have offspring in the winter if it wasn't the right time of year for it. Nature knows what it's doing more than we do. So for those breeders who want to control the timing of lambing and make it happen at a different time of year, there's some scientific information I'd like to share with you. There's a research paper that talks about how the photoperiod, or length of day, controls the seasonality of reproduction in sheep. And I'll put a link below to this PDF research paper. The paper has a chart that shows that the number of ewes that come into estrus and the number of ewes that ovulate is much lower in the months of February, March, April, May, and June, and then have an uptick starting about July and August. Now, there is a hidden spike in ovulation starting about April and May, but it doesn't go along with the estrus cycle. So if you're trying to breed your sheep during these time periods to delay it, you're probably not going to be successful. The male rams also have a much lower testicular weight, as well as the amount of sperm production during the months of February, March, April, May, and June. So if you're trying to breed your sheep from February to June so that you can have an earlier lambing season before the winter hits, you may not be able to breed them. But it really depends on the breed. This chart is from a study in Australia, and it shows how the Merino and Dorset sheep still cycle just about year-round, while the Border Leicester doesn't. Being able to breed year-round made the Dorset and Merino sheep breeds very, very popular among breeders. Now, Australia is in the southern hemisphere, so when it says January, February, or March, that's like our July, August, and September. So you can see how they reach a peak starting in late fall or late summer and early fall. And you can see in the months of June, July, and August in Australia, which would be like our December, January, and February, it starts to drop back off again, and all the sheep become less fertile. So all sheep follow this photoperiod yearly cycle, even northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere. The difference is that the Merino and the Dorset sheep breeds are less influenced by it, and that's what makes them so much more valuable to breeders. So by knowing this yearly cycle, it lets me plan and call out and make modifications to my sheep herd, and it lets me optimize the breeding cycle. Well, I hope this was informative. Thank you for watching the video.